Hi guys, it's Bryony. Welcome back to my channel. So baby boy is due right around the corner, and I did promise that I was going to do a video on my cloth pad postnatal stash. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. I have finally, I think, got everything ready to go. You can see my whole stash right here. So that's what I'm going to be going through today. I am having a hospital birth, so I have also got some disposables that I'm planning to use as well. I'm not planning to solely use reusable, so I will also show you what I've got from the disposable side. But with the reusables, I have around 16 like dedicated postnatal / postpartum. I should just say, in the UK we say postnatal, but in America I know they use the word postpartum. It means exactly the same thing. I'll probably switch between the two in this video because I'm used to using both terms in different environments anyway, but they mean the same thing. So I've got 16 postnatal pads, and I've got around 9 of my sort of heavy pads from my regular period stash that I have of cloth pads. So I will be kind of using them to top up my stash once my period, once my postnatal bleeding has eased off a bit and is just sort of more in the heavy range and not the like Niagara Falls range. So let's start with the disposables that I've got. So I've got 2 different types. The first one I'm going to show you are the disposable underwear that I've bought. These are by a brand called Tenor. In the UK, these are quite well known for being incontinence pants. You kind of wear them, they don't pull up, so you basically, hang on, let me get one out. Basically they come like this, and you just basically pull them on like you would underwear, and they've got the padding built in, and it kind of covers from here all the way down, so you get really, really good coverage. I went for the medium size with these because that's a size 10 to 16. I'm typically an 8, but obviously I've got a big bump at the moment, and that bump doesn't go away straight after you give birth. So I figured I would try these ones out, and I put them on the other day just to give them a test, and they fit really well. So hopefully these should be good. They're actually, this is the Silhouette one by Tenor, and they're actually really, really soft and really stretchy. And I also thought these would be good for just in general use after having a baby, because you don't need to worry about like leaking off the pad into your underwear, etc. But also the thing about them that's really great is if I ended up having a C-section, then the sides of this you can basically just rip off. So you don't need to bend over to pull them down. You can just rip them off, and I thought that might make things easier. Even if I don't have a C-section, to be honest, that might make things easier. So I just figured having that as an option might be really good. I had mixed reviews from people when I asked people for their like postpartum tips on my Instagram. Some people swore by these and said these were the best things ever, you absolutely needed to have them. And some people said don't use them, they're not that good for you, or they don't really work. So I actually used to use, before I discovered cloth pads when I was 15, like I started my periods at 14, so in that kind of short period between that, I actually did used to use like a teenage pull-up style of these overnight when I had my period, because like it just covered everything, and you would never leak through it either. So I know that I personally have used this sort of style before, and actually I quite like that, so I thought maybe that made me have a high chance of liking it postpartum as well. And also, like, I'm not fussed about aesthetics after you've given birth. People don't like the idea of wearing like an adult nappy or an adult diaper, but for me, like, if I've just given birth, I think my main priorities are going to be comfort and practicality, not aesthetics. So I wasn't worried about that at all. I just wanted it to be comfy and work, and so hopefully this will be the case. You just have to be careful not to wear these too long, I think, because they are so absorbent, because they're meant for incontinence. You just don't want to over wear these. You want to still change them relatively frequently like you would a pad, and then I think you'll be okay. So that's what I've got as my kind of like full coverage disposable option. And then disposable pad wise, I've gone for the Naturacare maternity pads. Basically, there's not actually a huge range of maternity pads I discovered when it comes to the disposables, but I really wanted ones that were unscented, because I just don't see like why you'd want like loads of chemicals up by your vagina right after you've given birth. And also I watched a YouTube video with somebody who'd given birth, and she happened to mention she'd used these and they were really great, and I was like, sure, I'll go for it then. So there are 10 of these in a box. I've got 2 boxes of these at the moment. One is in my hospital bag, and one is in the hospital booster bag that I've got. So basically I've packed like my main hospital bag. They don't like you to take too much stuff in at my hospital, so I've packed like one main bag to take with me, and then I have a second bag which is packed with a few extra bits in case for whatever reason I end up having to stay an extra night or two that can be brought in, and that'll have extra stock as well. So I have 20 of these at the moment. Haven't bought any more just yet because I figured I might try these and hate them. And if I didn't like them, there's no point having like 4 boxes and lying around. But if I do like them, obviously I can order more. They're on Amazon, you can get them like next day delivery. So didn't think that was going to be too much of an issue. So those are my disposable options. That's what I'm planning to use in the hospital and possibly for the next day or two afterwards. But also, I deliberately didn't buy too many. In fact, I don't think I've actually purchased any new postnatal pads for my postnatal bleeding. I've just used overnight / postpartum pads I already have that I kind of collected in my stash of cloth pads over the years, and also some people very kindly gifted me some postnatal pads as well, and I also sewed some up as well to boost my stock. So I haven't actually bought any more, and I didn't want to pay loads because I don't have particularly heavy periods anyway, and even if my periods got a bit heavier after having a baby, I don't think they get to the point where I would need like really big postnatal pads. So there didn't seem much point to invest in lots and lots of pads, which actually cloth postnatal pads can be quite expensive because they are so big and absorbent. So I figured I would just have enough of a stash to kind of be comfortably able to use cloth pads most of the time. But maybe in the first couple of days when my period is more heavy, I might need to kind of interchange with disposables a little bit. But after a while, I think I should have enough because, as I said, I've got the 16 postnatal dedicated pads plus 9 heavy pads from my kind of regular heavy stash of cloth pads that I have. So I have 25 pads in total, and I think that should be fine once my flow is kind of gone from being Niagara Falls to just a heavy period. So I'm going to go from biggest to smallest in my postnatal stash, so from like the really big heavy duty postnatal pads all the way down to my sort of regular heavies, and I think that's probably the best way to do it. So starting off with, I have 4 massive pads from a brand called Homestead Emporium. She is a Canadian seller, and I have to say I was really, really lucky because these were actually given to me by a friend who I know through the cloth pad community. She gifted these to me. I had no idea she was doing this. It was just an amazing package arrived, and I was so thrilled because Homestead Emporium is like the brand of cloth pad for postpartum bleeding. She makes mega sized pads. They're super soft. They're well known for being really good for postpartum flow. So I have 3 of her Mega Max pads. Let me go through these. So these are huge. Can you see how big that is compared to my face? This is 18 and a half inches long, really big, and has an absorbent bamboo core. This Homestead Emporium have what's known as a stepped core, so the majority of the absorbency is here, then there's another bit here, and then it's topped in this really absorbent bamboo velour as well. Super soft. I've already pre-washed this ready to go, and it's still amazingly soft. And she is just so good at making pads. These are backed in, I think. I'm not entirely sure what this is. It feels like a type of fleece I've not come across before. I thought she's Windpro, but this doesn't feel like Windpro to me. It might be though. It might be a new type. So I have one in this gorgeous hand-dyed, like purple and blue. I have another, they're all hand-dyed actually, but this print here, also gorgeous. So these are called the Mega Max. It's like her biggest one. I think she might even go one size bigger, but I definitely don't need more than 18 inches. And then this beautiful print here. So these are just absolutely gorgeous. And I am actually planning to take these and the other Homestead Emporium one I have here, which is the Ultimax, which is still massive, but it's not quite as big. It's 16 inches, 16.5 inches. These are actually going to come with me to the hospital. So I do have a cloth option with me while I'm there, in case I want to use them. And I'm like, absolutely don't like the disposables. I want to use the reusables. So I will bring them with me as an option, but I'm anticipating I probably won't actually use these until I get home, but I am going to bring them with me. So this is the Ultimax, 16.5 inches, again, hand-dyed, bamboo velour topped, stepped core, and they are just absolutely gorgeous, and I am so thrilled and over the moon to have got these from my friends. That was amazing. So then we move on to the cloth pads that I have actually made myself. So these are all backed in this fluorescent orange fleece, and the reason these are in fluorescent orange fleece is because I was sent a sample of this fleece by a Chinese factory quite a while ago, like a couple of years back now, and it just so happened, obviously it was just a sample to kind of see the style of fleece, and it's a type of fleece where it's polyester fleece on one side, but it's PUL backed on the other, so it's completely waterproof across this. And I hadn't come across a fleece like that before, so I was sent a sample to kind of use. We ended up not going with it. There were other reasons for not doing it, but I still had this like meter of this fleece. So when it came to needing to make some postpartum pads, I thought, well, why not use it in the pads? So that's why they're backed in that. So 2 of the pads are topped in this suede cloth, and 2 are topped in cotton. So I'll start with the suede cloth ones. So these have been overlocked. Don't look too closely at my stitching. I only had an overlocker for a year. I've never overlocked pads before, but I kind of also wanted to test myself a bit with these as well. So these ones, you can actually kind of see how the core works mainly in these. Again, I've done a stepped core with this. So I've put like a layer of bamboo fleece. This is all bamboo fleece on the inside, which is very absorbent. Bamboo fleece going from here to here, and then from around here to here, and then throughout the whole pad as well, with some extending out into the wings for extra coverage when this is snapped up to like that. So these are 15 inches, so they're still pretty big cloth pads, and I've designed them so that they are, you know, very absorbent in the middle, but they kind of taper out a bit, but still with the coverage across most of the pad. So these 2 are basically the same. One is slightly better sewn than the other, and I'm going to kind of hide that. And then I have one that is cotton topped. I've pre-washed it, which is why it looks a little bit funny and it's kind of curling around a bit. I completely forgot with these 2 to pre-wash the bamboo fleece on the inside before sewing it, which is why they've kind of misshapen a little bit more. But they should still work absolutely fine. So again, this is actually a hand-dyed cotton that I made many, many years ago. I'm pretty sure I dyed it myself. The exact same core setup on the inside and 15 inches. And then one that I didn't have my overlocker out for, so I just did a typical kind of turn and top stitch, not particularly well, as you can see here. And again, I forgot to pre-wash the fabric on this, so it has kind of shrunk and curled around the edges, but it's still around 15 inches long. So it's still got really good coverage and absorbency. So those 4 are kind of pads that I sewed to boost my stash, so I had more options for postpartum. The next pad I have is, I believe this is by So Sweet Creations. I'm not sure because the label's come off, but I'm pretty sure that's who this was made by. It's a 15-inch pad. It was actually one of my favourite overnight pads before I went on the pill and stopped my periods. Lovely print. It's cotton topped, really absorbent as well. The absorbency goes throughout the pad and obviously has this flared back for extra coverage, and at the front too. And it's also a really good width for me. It has a wider option and a narrow one too, but I just thought it was really beautiful, and it has a pretty good amount of coverage. So I think this will be able to be used reasonably early on in my postpartum bleeding as well. So the next 2 pads in my stash are also gifted. These are from a company called Mama So Crazy, and she very kindly messaged me and offered to send me some, and I was like, absolutely, feel free. So I really want to shout out to her for that. These are amazing. So I have 2 pads from her. This one I believe is about 13 inches, and this one is around 12 inches. So the 13-inch pad is cotton topped, obviously very flared as well for really great coverage. It's pretty thick as well. It has a really good amount of absorbance in there, so I've no doubt this will be really good for holding a postpartum flow. And then I have a 12-inch from her, slightly less flared, and I think this is actually a cotton jersey. It feels a bit more jersey-like on the top, but again, really good absorbency too. She also was kind enough to send me a cloth nappy as well to add to my nappy stash, which was really gorgeous with like rainbows and stuff on it, so that was really kind. So yeah, definitely really pleased to have these in my stash. The next pads I have in my stash are by a brand that unfortunately I don't think exists anymore. I think stopped making pads quite a while ago, but they were called Orgo pads. So I had one in her round style and one in her square style. I'll start with the round style. So these are 13 inches. We're down to the 13 inches now. They're pretty absorbent. They've got a Zorb lining, Chilez of Zorb, which is known for being really absorbent, as the name suggests. That's why it's called Zorb. Cotton topped, but these were really comfy overnight, and from my memory they were really absorbent too. And then this one I have is a minky top fabric. So the first one in the stash that's minky topped, which is really, really soft. And I know a lot of people have said when they've used pads postpartum that having minky is a great fabric. So I've had these for a few years as like overnight pads, and they've been really great. So these should hopefully be good for postpartum too. Sorry if you can hear the vacuum going on in the background. The next cloth pad in my stash, I believe, is from a brand called Full Moon Cloth Pads. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Again, I've had this pad for a while, and unfortunately very few of my pads have labels on them to remind me what they are, and I've been through so many cloth pads over the years. It is quite tricky to remember every brand, but I believe this was Full Moon, and it's one of my absolute favourite overnight cloth pads. It's very absorbent. It fits me really, really well. It's topped in a fabric, it's called Procol Wicking Jersey, which is a wicking fabric. So when you bleed on it, it wicks the moisture away from your skin. So I really, really love this one. It's 13 inches, as I said before. Even overnight, I struggle with 13 inches because I bleed very centrally here, which is where all the absorbency is, by the way. You can feel like an extra bit of core here, which is perfect. But I then tended to bleed a little bit off the back, which is where I needed like the 15-inch pads overnight for, just for this like tiny spot of blood that had obviously just gone down my butt crack or something. So occasionally this little flick at the end would catch it, but not always. So that was the only annoying thing about these pads, was that they just wasn't quite long enough. So I don't think these will work overnight, but I think during the day, this should be good for postpartum, still quite early on. It is a postpartum / overnight pad, but yeah, full moon, and I do really like the shape. And again, you can see it's really flared at the back, so should be able to hold a good amount of flow. The next cloth pad in my stash is one I've had in my stash for quite some time. I believe this I got relatively early on in my cloth pad journey, so maybe like 8 or 9 years old. This is by a brand called Pampered Mama. She is still going, and this is her 13 or 14 inch. I think it measures more like 13 inches. I can't remember if it's supposed to be 14 inches, but 13 inch overnight / postpartum pad, and it's minky topped in my favorite minky print ever, this like cherry print. Has a number of different snap settings, so you can have it quite wide or you can make it a little bit more narrow. And one of the really cool things about her pads is that she has like a hole at the bottom here, which you can actually put a little ice pack in to have like some soothing coolness up against your vagina afterwards if you want. I don't have one of her ice packs, and I think she's based in either the USA or Canada. I think she's USA, so I wouldn't be able to get one in time now anyway. I could probably improvise if I needed to, but I've had this pad in my stash for a long time, and I remember when I bought it thinking I'll be able to use that postpartum as well. So here we are. So really pleased to be able to use this. It's so soft. So that is my Pampered Mama. And finally, the last like proper postnatal pad I have in my stash is this one. This is actually an old Precious Stars sample. So we do a budget range at Precious Stars in like rainbow colours, and you can see here there's not even a label, it's just a marker where the label would go. This is the first ever sample the factory sent us when we were trying out different styles and different ideas, and so this is just hung around in a drawer for years and years and years now. We don't even top our pads in this fabric anymore. This is an organic cotton blend, and we don't use it anymore. We use a wicking fabric, a bamboo charcoal wicking fabric on top, which is a little bit more popular, and we also don't put a label here anymore, it's just on the wings. So a lot has changed since this first sample came about. But I happened to be cleaning out one of the drawers and I found this, and I thought, well, no time like the present. It's never going to get used for anything else, so might as well throw it in my stash. So this is a 13-inch postpartum pad from Precious Stars, but it's just one of our old samples. So those are my main sort of postnatal cloth pads. However, whilst your bleeding is usually very heavy at the beginning, it does eventually sort of start to lighten up a bit. And so I have some heavy pads as well. These 9 are from my regular stash, so I'm going to go through them. And I apologise in advance because I cannot remember the brands for all of these, but every one that I can remember, I will try and put on the screen. So the first cloth pad I had is this one, which is bamboo velour topped. I keep wanting to say this is by Red Anchor Cloth. I don't believe it is. I think it's from a different brand that I now cannot remember. Some of you who've been watching me for a while and who are very eager-eyed, you might remember the brand of this one, because I'm sure I did a review on it somewhere back, and I'd have to go through so many videos to figure out which one it was. But I know I love this pad to pieces. I don't know if she's still going anymore. Again, I've had them for a good few years, but it's bamboo velour topped, stepped core, so it's got different absorbency in it, and really, really absorbent. And this is around 11 inches. So next I have a smaller Homestead Emporium. I think this is an Ulti Mini. Not entirely sure how long this one is. It looks about 10 inches to me. Very absorbent. Unfortunately, one of the snaps has fallen off, so it only has the narrow snap left, but fortunately that's the setting I've always used it on, so it's still usable for me. I actually have a purple one of these as well, but I grabbed the blue one out of my stash, so I have that one to use. The next pad I have is, I'm pretty sure this is Red Anchor Cloth. It has a flared style, it's cotton topped, and it's very, very absorbent, so I thought it'd be really good for adding to my stash. Then I have 2 pads by a brand called Mini Vivi. One of them is bamboo velour topped, and the wings wrap around these ones really well. These fit really nicely for me, and they're 11 inches long, so they've got a good amount of absorbency and a reasonably good length too. So I think these might be some of the first to kind of get introduced into my stash from the heavy flow pads. So I've got that one in bamboo velour, and then I also have one which is in this kind of like dyed cotton, which amazingly I've managed to keep relatively stain free, even though it's blue and white together, which is typically quite difficult. But up until this point it's been stain free. Not so sure how it'll be afterwards, but again, really absorbent and fits really well. I then have an 11-inch heavy from a friend of mine. I think her company has changed recently. She is the Happiness Company now. Used to have another name for it, but this is a heavy flow pad, which I have in my stash, and again it's reasonably long, so I've added it into my second half postnatal stash. Then I have a 12-inch pad that I cannot for the life of me remember the name of this brand. I want to say like Country Cloth Creation. It's not County Cloth Creation, that's a different brand, but like Country Cloth or something. She used to be very active. She used to make loads and loads of pads, I remember. And I saw this print on Etsy and I just absolutely loved it. It's like farmland print. Again, I've had this for a very long time, so this brand may very well not exist. And like I said, I can't really remember what it is, but it's a very absorbent 12-inch pad. So again, really good coverage. Can probably go into my postnatal stash pretty quickly after I've started bleeding as well. And then I have my favorite heavy pad of all of them. I believe this one is also red anchor cloth. And this is a 12-inch kind of flared, slightly longer at the back than at the front, and it's cotton topped, cotton batik topped, really absorbent, really good fit for me, so I think this one will be really great to add into. And finally, I have one from a brand that I really cannot remember either. Again, if people spot them, this is like a dragon scale print. It's a Procol wicking jersey, so it's a wicking fabric, so it should keep you nice and dry, and it's got really great coverage. I think this is actually almost 13 inches, it's about 12.5 inches, so it's still quite long. And it's pretty absorbent as well. Although technically it's got an M on it to say it's a moderate, I think this will be fine to add into the stash once my flow has died down a little bit. Just that I still want lots of coverage, but don't need quite as much absorbency anymore. So I added that to the stash too. And that is it. That is my postnatal cloth pad stash. So obviously I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but once I have, if people are interested, I can always do a review on kind of what worked and what didn't work for me using cloth pads postpartum. Like I said, not planning to use them sort of in the immediate aftermath of having the baby, but quite quickly after I get home, or maybe even in the hospital if I feel like it, I would like to start using some cloth there, because it just feels much more comfortable to me, and you know, also more environmentally friendly in the long run, and just more soft in general. So I've always preferred using cloth pads over disposable ones, so I figured it might well be the same for me in my postnatal period too. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Do let me know your tips and tricks if you used cloth pads postpartum, or if you found something that worked really well for you and what didn't, and you know, depending on what kind of birth you had, whether you had a cesarean or you had a natural birth, or you tore or you didn't tear, whatever, things that you found really helpful, just be really useful to share for other people to read through the comments, not just me, and just generally a good way to start a conversation about this. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye everyone.